talk about the things that you're proud of and to talk about the things that you're good at, your successes, and the things that you did right. But it is much, much harder to talk about your failures and some of the different mistakes that you've made over the years. Let's face it, none of us want to do that. And as I sit here today recording this video, I'm 29 years old and I'm really happy with how my career and personal life have shaken out over the years. But I would be lying through my teeth if I said that I didn't make any mistakes or I didn't regret any of my decisions that I've made along the way. The truth is that over the course of my career and as I've grown and scaled my Turo fleet, I've made some costly errors and costly mistakes that if I could go back again, I 100% would not do them over. But the lessons that I've learned from these mistakes have been incredibly valuable, and they've helped me prevent making these mistakes again later on down the road. And today I want to break down just that. I want to talk about some of my biggest mistakes that I've made over the course of my car sharing career. I want to talk about what these mistakes were, how I learned from these mistakes, and most importantly, how you can avoid making the same ones. But before we dive into that, I do want to remind you all that it's currently Black Friday for the Car Sharing Masterclass, and if you're watching this video between November 18th and November 30th, you can use the code BLACKFRIDAY247 to get 49% off the Car Sharing Masterclass purchase. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Car Sharing Masterclass is my course I've put together teaching people how to start their very own car sharing side hustle or business with the same business model that HP and I use with our own fleet. And it teaches you everything that you need to know about car sharing. So if you want to check that out for yourself, you can go down in the description below, click on the link, and then use the code BLACKFRIDAY247 to get your Black Friday price. And with that out of the way, let's dive into some of my biggest mistakes and how you can avoid them. Now, I don't talk about this often. In fact, I think I've only mentioned it a few times in passing on this channel, but whenever I was 21 years old, I was approved for a $330,000 SBA loan, and I used this SBA loan to start a brick and mortar business. Long story short, about 4 years later in 2018, I was at risk of defaulting on that SBA loan, and the financial windfall that would have followed had I defaulted would have been devastating. Now, fortunately, I didn't default, and to be honest, Turo's actually the main reason as to why I didn't, because I was able to use the money that I was making from Turo at the time in order to pay my minimum monthly payment on the SBA loan, and I was then able to buy some time so that I could figure out what my long-term game plan was. But this period of my life was without a doubt the hardest period of time I've ever had to go through, and the period in which I was at risk of defaulting on my loan, I've never been more stressed, anxious, or depressed than I was during this time, and the toll that it took on both my mental health as well as my physical health was extremely severe. But this extremely tough experience taught me a really valuable lesson, and that was to never, ever, ever overextend yourself with debt. And if you do take out debt, make sure to have a plan on how you're going to pay back that debt in a worst case scenario. Sure, there is value in leverage, and if you talk to an entrepreneur or aspiring entrepreneurs, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna get people saying something along the lines of, use other people's money to grow your wealth. And this is entirely true with certain types of businesses and certain types of investments. Now, I know that this mistake isn't necessarily Turo and car sharing related specifically, because the business that I started with at $330,000 was not a Turo related business at all. But this taught me a very important lesson, and it let me see the risks associated with taking on debt for the sake of starting a business. And that's a risk that I do not want to take again. I will always be an advocate for starting a Turo fleet with cash and growing and scaling that fleet with cash flow. And sure, you may not be able to grow and scale that fleet as fast as you would have had you taken out debt. And sure, growing your wealth quickly with leverage can feel and look really cool. But being debt-free with a profitable and cash flowing business is way cooler, and I will always choose the latter over the former. Over leveraging yourself with debt can be a huge mistake, and I unfortunately had to learn that lesson the hard way. But if you're somebody who's wanting to grow, scale, or start a Turo fleet, doing so with cash flow is, in my opinion, the best route to go down, because it allows for you to grow your fleet with peace of mind, knowing that if something happens with the economy, if something happens with one of your cars, you're not going to be at risk of losing everything. Cash cars are king, and I will always believe that. The next mistake is not sticking to your guns, and I'm actually going to clump HP into this one as well, because it was definitely a mistake that both of us made. You see, this year HP and I set the goal of getting to 25 cars in our car sharing fleet, and this has been a tough goal to reach because of a few different reasons. Number one, the car market. It's been really hard to find good cars, and also because of the fact that we've had a number of cars totaled throughout the year, which always brings our car count down. So it feels as though we've been playing catch up for the majority of 2022. Well, earlier this year, I was getting really antsy with the idea that we weren't going to meet our 25 car goal. And as a result, I was really desperately looking for cars to buy. And in the pursuit of looking for a car to purchase, we ended up checking out a 2015 Kia Rio. Now, it's important to note that one of our first cars that we ever bought for our Turo fleet was a 2009 Kia Rio. And this car was an absolute disaster. And we ended up selling this car a few years later, and we told ourselves that we would never own a Kia again. But here we are in March of 2022, looking at another newer Kia Rio. On the surface, this car was great. It was clean, it was newer, it was a really solid car. But it was a Kia, it was a Kia Rio, and we did tell ourselves previously that we would never buy this make and model again. But because of the fact that this car looked good on the surface, we decided to pull the trigger and we purchased this car in March of 2022. And this was a mistake. To this day, this car has been plagued with issues. I feel as though we fix one issue and then another issue pops up. The car is really solid, it looks nice, it has a nice interior, but mechanically it just isn't as reliable as some of our other vehicles. And though I don't think it's worth selling quite yet, I definitely will not be buying another Kia in the future. I talk about this a lot on my channel, the importance of having predefined standards and requirements that every single car you buy for your fleet must meet. And I really cannot stress the importance of this enough. You should have an idea of what types of cars you want to buy, and more importantly, which types of cars you want to avoid. And never, ever waver from those requirements, because that's whenever you make huge and costly mistakes like what HP and I've done with this Kia Rio. The truth is, the mistakes with the Kia Rio were 100% preventable, and they could have been prevented by just stopping, thinking about what we were doing, and thinking about what types of cars we actually want to add into our Turo fleet. Instead, we got impatient, and as a result, we made a costly mistake. Always stick to your guns. Doing so can help you avoid some really costly mistakes that should have never been made in the first place. Next step is doing things right the first time. This is something that I'm still learning from today. You see, whenever you run a car sharing fleet, or any business for that matter, you're going to run into a lot of different challenges that oftentimes need to be fixed with something that you have to buy or pay for. Maybe it's by hiring an accountant, or hiring a mechanic, or buying certain tools, or buying certain parts, or doing a specific repair on your car. The list is truly endless, but there are a ton of different things that will come up on a day-by-day or month-by-month basis that you're going to have to address. And these things are more often than not going to cost money. For a long time, I would try to find the cheapest solutions to these problems. I would look for budget mechanics. I would have HP do the work himself. That way our labor was 100% free. I would find cheap accountants on Upwork that were a good bang for your buck. And I've learned over the years that this was a mistake, and that instead of trying to cut corners and trying to find the cheap route, I should have instead tried to find the quality route. And this is something that I've put a lot of effort into changing throughout the entire year of 2022. And the benefit has been huge. A perfect example is my accountant. Like I said, for years, I would look on Upwork for a cheap accountant that could file my taxes, I'd be good to go, and I would be able to use them again the next year. Well, this past year, I decided to change things up, and I decided to invest heavily into a really great accounting firm. Now, this firm is not cheap. They're very expensive, but the amount of money that I've saved by working with them has been incredible. And this is an investment that there is no part of me that regrets. I'm so happy with the choice that I made with my accounting firm. Another example is our cars. You see, for a very long time, HP did 100% of the maintenance and repairs on our fleet. And for the most part, this works out really well. But there are some times whenever the work is overloading HP and he simply doesn't have time for everything. And a few years ago, we would just snooze vehicles while he had a chance to address all of the issues. While today, we've instead started to partner up with local shops in order to get the work done quicker. This costs more upfront, but it allows for the cars to get done quickly. That way they can get back on the road. We're investing in more labor, and as a result, we get more utilizations out of our cars. Another great example is tools themselves. You see, whenever HP and I first started our Turo fleet, we got a lot of our tools and equipment from Harbor Freight. This was great for the time being, but we've had to go through and replace all of those tools we purchased from Harbor Freight for a better, higher quality ones that will have more longevity. Buying things for a steal is great, and I'm definitely somebody that likes a good deal, but sometimes it's better to just pay a premium for a better product. And this is something that I've repeatedly had to tell myself throughout this entire year, and it's a valuable lesson that I probably wish I would have learned earlier. And on a similar note is the topic of doing all of the work yourself. And this is something that I think a lot of solo entrepreneurs or small companies fall into. You see, for a long time, I was doing all of this work on my own because HP worked as a car salesman and had a full-time job. So whenever it came to checking in cars, working on cars, recording videos, editing the videos, doing marketing, doing accounting, all of this stuff was done nearly 100% by me. And over the years, I've realized that I simply do not have time to do everything that needs to be done throughout the day. And as a result, I've been forced to delegate a lot of our tasks out, whether it be to 1099 workers, whether it be to HP, whether it be to local shops. We've had to delegate a lot more than we used to. And delegating has been great because not only does it take these tasks off of my own plate, but I'm able to find people that are better at doing these tasks than I ever will be. Again, we go back to the example of the accountant. My accountant is so much smarter than I am that he can go through, he can do my books and my accountants and my tax planning so much better than I would have ever been able to do it. So not only do I now not have to worry about this task, but I have a professional doing it for me. And this is something that we're slowly starting to do with HP as well. HP has a ton to do throughout the day. He simply does not have enough time in the day to get all of these tasks done. And we are having to be forced to delegate some of that work out. That way he has more time to do more important things. Delegating is very, very hard, but once you begin to do it and once you find the right people to delegate tasks out to, it can be a game changer for not only your business, but also your personal life as well. Now, this may come as a surprise to anybody watching this channel, but one of the decisions that I don't regret is buying my Maserati Ghibli and renting out of that Maserati on Turo. Now, for those of you who don't know, last year in 2021, HP and I bought a 2015 Maserati Ghibli. We rented it out on the Turo platform for about 6 months until it was totaled by a renter. A renter was driving well over 100 miles per hour. He lost control of the car, slammed it into a wall, and it was totaled. Now, I get asked all the time if buying the Maserati and renting out that Maserati on Turo is a decision that I regret. And the truth is, I really don't. And buying the Maserati Ghibli and renting it out on Turo is something that I would do time and time again if given the chance. There were some huge benefits by doing this. Not only did we get to own a Maserati, I got to drive it on the weekends or on the weekdays whenever it wasn't being rented out, and I actually really enjoyed the car. We were able to get some really good content for YouTube, and we were also able to learn about a new business model of being able to rent luxury cars out on Turo and gain some experience in that industry, which we hadn't up until that point. But I think it's important to emphasize that the reason why we didn't regret the Maserati purchase is because we were very strategic with how we went about doing it. We knew that there was a pretty good chance that the Maserati could be wrecked or may not perform well on Turo. And as a result, we were really, really strategic with what price we bought the car at, which type of car we bought, which price point we listed it out on. We were just really thoughtful with how we bought and listed this car. I think a lot of people see my channel and watch my videos and they think that I believe that you can only be successful with Turo if you're renting out low-end economy cars. And though I do believe that low-end economy or mid-tier economy cars are the best business model for Turo, they certainly aren't the only ones, and they're not the only ones that you can make money from. And I think the Maserati Ghibli is a great example of how you can go and experiment with different business models and different vehicles in a really strategic way. By being mindful of what can happen in a worst case scenario and being prepared for that, that way you can protect yourself if there is an issue. Now, whenever it comes to Turo and car sharing, there aren't a ton of different mistakes that I look back on with a ton of regret. For the most part, I'm pretty happy with a lot of the choices that I've made, and in large part, this is due to the fact that I've read the terms of service for Turo extensively, and I know the safeguards that are put into place, I know the rules that I have to follow, and I know what I can and cannot do on the platform. I feel like if you read the terms of service and if you follow the terms of service, you really limit yourself to the major mistakes that can occur that will really be detrimental to your finances. At the end of the day, mistakes are to an extent unavoidable, and it's not a matter of which mistakes you make, but it's a matter of how you move past the mistakes that you make in order to grow your business further. And I hope this sheds some light on some of the mistakes that I've made over the years and how you yourself can avoid them in the future. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.